Saturday, June 15th, Napa Valley Resort. The Nexus Solutions annual company picnic should have been perfect. Sunny skies, open bar, and enough corporate team-building activities to make any HR director weep with joy. I stood by the wine station, watching Isabella work the crowd with that practice smile she'd perfected over our 12 years of marriage. "Tom, you need to try the salmon," she called out, waving me over to where the executives clustered around CEO Jonathan Meridian. I walked over, champagne flute in hand, and noticed something that made my investment banker instincts twitch. Isabella kept glancing toward the gazebo where Gregory Blackstone, VP of Operations, stood with his pharmaceutical executive wife Vivian. Not unusual, except Isabella's glances weren't directed at Vivian. "The Q3 projections look promising," Meridian was saying. "Gregory's managed to streamline our operational costs by 15%. "Remarkable efficiency," Isabella replied, her voice carrying that particular warmth she usually reserved for me. "Gregory certainly knows how to optimize performance." Gregory's laugh carried across the lawn. Deep, confident, the kind that gets you promoted in Silicon Valley boardrooms. When he caught Isabella's eye, something passed between them that had nothing to do with quarterly reports. I filed it away. 12 years of analyzing corporate behavior teaches you to notice patterns, even at family picnics. "Daddy, can we go on the hayride?" Our 10-year-old daughter Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Of course, sweetheart." I looked around for Isabella, but she'd vanished from the executive circle. I found her 20 minutes later, emerging from the resort's main building with slightly mussed hair and lipstick that looked freshly applied. Gregory appeared from the same direction 30 seconds later, straightening his tie. "Where were you?" I asked when she rejoined us at the dessert table. "Bathroom," she said without missing a beat. "The line was ridiculous." I nodded, watching Gregory return to his wife's side and plant a kiss on her cheek. Vivian Blackstone, elegant in her designer sundress, had no idea her husband's lips had just been somewhere else. The rest of the afternoon played out in slow motion. Isabella and Gregory maintained perfect distance, never standing too close, never talking too long. But I caught the subtle signals. The way Isabella smoothed her skirt when Gregory walked by. How Gregory's gaze lingered on her legs during the award ceremony. The synchronized bathroom breaks. When families started loading into cars around 6, Isabella hugged several colleagues goodbye. Her farewell to Gregory lasted 3 seconds longer than appropriate, her hand resting on his shoulder while she whispered something that made him smile. "Ready to head home?" I asked. "Just need to grab my purse from the coat check." I followed her inside, hanging back as she approached the concierge desk. What she retrieved wasn't just her purse. Tucked inside was a plastic keycard. The Ritz-Carlton logo was clearly visible. Sunday morning, our kitchen. Isabella hummed while making coffee, still glowing from whatever had happened in that hotel room. I sat at the breakfast bar, the keycard centered between us like evidence in a deposition. "Interesting souvenir from a family picnic," I said. Her hand froze on the coffee pot handle. Color drained from her face as she stared at the white plastic rectangle. "Tom, I can explain. The Ritz-Carlton Presidential Suite, $700 a night." I kept my voice level, professional. "That's quite an expense for a bathroom break." She sank into the chair across from me, the fight going out of her shoulders. "How long have you known?" "Since yesterday." "The question is, how long has this been going on?" Tears started, but I was past caring about her emotional displays. This was discovery phase now, Time to gather facts. 6 months, she whispered. It started during my quarterly review. Gregory said I had potential for advancement. And you interpreted that as an invitation to sleep with him? It wasn't like that. He was so attentive, so interested in my ideas. You're always traveling, always focused on your deals. Gregory made me feel valued. I almost laughed. Isabella, the ambitious marketing director who'd clawed her way up the corporate ladder at Nexus Solutions, was playing the neglected wife card. How often? Every Tuesday. We'd meet at different hotels, plan strategy for upcoming campaigns. Cut the corporate speak, Isabella. How often did you sleep with your boss? Her composure cracked. Weekly, sometimes twice if he had overnight trips to the city. 24 encounters, minimum. In corporate law, that established a pattern of behavior. Did you discuss my work? What? No, of course not. Isabella. My voice carried the same tone I used with lying CFOs. Did you share information about my clients with Gregory? She looked away. That was answer enough. Pack your things, I said, standing, and update your LinkedIn profile. You're going to need it. Monday morning. My office, downtown. San Francisco. Maximilian Cross arrived at precisely 9 a.m., carrying a leather briefcase that cost more than most people's cars. The top corporate litigator in California didn't make house calls unless the situation involved serious money. Tom, you sounded urgent on the phone. Max settled into the chair across from my desk. Marital problems? Corporate espionage, securities fraud, and a few lesser charges. I slid a manila folder across to him. My wife's been sharing confidential client information with her lover, who happens to be VP of operations at a publicly traded company. Max's eyebrows climbed as he reviewed the documentation I'd compiled overnight. Bank records showing hotel charges on Gregory's corporate credit card. Screenshots of text messages Isabella had left open on her laptop. Calendar entries showing private meetings during market hours. This is extensive, Max said. You've been investigating them? I'm an investment banker, Max. Due diligence is what I do. I pulled out another folder. Gregory Blackstone has made several suspicious stock trades in the past 6 months, all based on information Isabella could have provided about my client's merger activities. Max's expression grew serious. If you can prove he traded on material non-public information, I can. Isabella had advanced knowledge of the Meridian Tech Global merger 3 weeks before public announcement. Gregory purchased $50,000 in Tech Global call options 2 days later. That's securities fraud. Minimum 10 years federal prison. More if we can prove conspiracy. I leaned back in my chair. I want them both destroyed, Max. Professionally, financially, personally. Complete annihilation. Max studied the evidence again. This goes beyond divorce court, Tom. We're talking federal investigation, SEC involvement, criminal prosecution. Good. I want every available remedy. I stood and walked to the window overlooking the financial district. Isabella chose to weaponize our marriage for insider information. Now she gets to experience corporate warfare. What about your children? They'll understand when they're older. Their mother chose to commit federal crimes for career advancement. That's on her, not me. Max closed the folders. I'll need 48 hours to review everything thoroughly. If this evidence is solid, we can notify the SEC and FBI simultaneously. Do it. And Max? I want Isabella's affair partner to lose everything. His job, his assets, his freedom, make it hurt. Tuesday evening, Sable Sterling's office. The private investigator's office looked like something from a noir film. Venetian blinds, filing cabinets, and a desk lamp that threw dramatic shadows across Sable Sterling's face. She'd spent 15 years in corporate security before going independent, specializing in executive misconduct. "Your wife's not very careful," Sable said, spreading photographs across her desk. Hotel keycard records, license plate tracking, credit card receipts. They've been meeting every Tuesday for 6 months at different locations. The photos told the story. Isabella and Gregory entering the St. Regis, holding hands in the Fairmont lobby, kissing in the parking garage of the Four Seasons. Any business discussions? Plenty. I managed to get audio from their table at Morton's Steakhouse last Thursday. Sable pressed play on a digital recorder. Isabella's voice came through clearly. "Tom's clients are nervous about the semiconductor regulations. He thinks the tech global merger might face antitrust issues." Gregory's response: "Interesting. When do you think they'll announce the delay?" "Probably after the quarterly earnings call. Tom's been working on alternative financing structures." I felt my jaw tighten. Isabella had violated attorney-client privilege, securities regulations, and her marriage vows in one conversation. "There's more," Sable continued. "Gregory's been taking screenshots of Isabella's text messages when she forwards him information. Smart enough to document everything for his own protection. Or stupid enough to create evidence of conspiracy. That's for the lawyers to decide. What I can tell you is that Gregory Blackstone has made over $2 million in stock trades using information your wife provided." The number hit like a physical blow. $2 million in profit from securities fraud built on the bones of my marriage. "I need everything documented," I said. "Financial records, communication logs, travel schedules. Build a prosecution-ready case file." "Already working on it. Give me another week, and I'll have enough evidence to convict them both." Friday morning, FBI Field Office, San Francisco. Agent Phoenix Gray looked exactly like central casting would order for a federal securities fraud investigator. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and the kind of presence that made white-collar criminals nervous. "Mr. Ravencrest, this is quite an extensive package." She reviewed the evidence folders Max and I had assembled. "Securities fraud, conspiracy, insider trading. Your wife and her partner have been busy. Busy destroying my marriage and defrauding investors. The SEC is already reviewing the trading patterns you've identified. Gregory Blackstone's account shows consistent profits immediately preceding major announcement dates." Agent Gray made notes in her file. "Would you be willing to cooperate in a federal investigation?" "Absolutely. I want them prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Cooperation might involve recorded phone calls, wearing surveillance equipment, providing ongoing financial intelligence. Are you prepared for that level of involvement? I thought about Isabella, currently staying at her sister's house, sending me daily text messages about reconciliation and therapy. I thought about Gregory, sitting in his corner office at Nexus Solutions, making trades with my client information. Whatever it takes, Agent Gray. Good, because we're going to need your help to build an airtight case. She closed the file. How do you feel about wearing a wire? Monday morning, Nexus Solutions headquarters. The Nexus building gleamed in the morning sun. 43 floors of glass and steel, housing one of Silicon Valley's fastest-growing companies. I'd been here dozens of times for Isabella's corporate events, but never as a federal informant. The wire felt strange against my chest, hidden beneath my dress shirt and tie. Agent Gray's voice echoed in my earpiece. Remember, we need him to discuss the trades voluntarily. Don't lead him into incriminating statements. I found Gregory in the executive break room, pouring coffee from an expensive espresso machine. His suit probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Ironic, considering it was purchased with stolen money. Tom, he turned with that practiced executive smile. Didn't expect to see you here. How are you holding up? About as well as expected when your wife's having an affair. Gregory's smile faltered. I'm sorry, what? Isabella told me everything, Gregory. The hotels, the stock tips, the cozy Tuesday meetings. I watched his face go pale. Question is, what are we going to do about it? He set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. Tom, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You've been sleeping with my wife and trading on information she provided about my clients. That's securities fraud. We didn't. Gregory looked around the break room, realizing we were alone. Look, the relationship with Isabella was personal. Whatever trading you think happened. I don't think, Gregory. I know. $2 million in profits over 6 months, all timed perfectly with information Isabella had access to through my work. His composure finally cracked. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Isabella kept mentioning your deals, saying how much money your clients were making. I thought, just once, maybe I could get ahead of the curve. Admission of intent. Agent Gray's voice in my ear. Beautiful. Keep him talking. Once became twice, twice became a pattern, I continued. Now you're facing federal prison time. Prison. Tom, we can work this out. I'll end things with Isabella. We can pretend this never happened. Too late for that. The SEC's already reviewing your trading patterns. FBI's building a case file. I stepped closer, letting him see the certainty in my eyes. You're done, Gregory. His face went white. You can't be serious. Dead serious. You destroyed my marriage for stock tips. Now I'm returning the favor. Wednesday afternoon. Vivian Blackstone's office. Blackstone Pharmaceuticals occupied 3 floors of a gleaming biotech complex in South San Francisco. Vivian Blackstone's corner office commanded a view of the Bay, with diplomas from Harvard Medical School and Stanford Business School flanking her massive desk. Mr. Ravencrest, thank you for coming. Vivian was elegant in the way only pharmaceutical executives could be. Expensive, cold, and absolutely lethal when protecting her interests. Your message mentioned my husband. I placed a manila envelope on her desk. Your husband's been having an affair with my wife. More importantly, he's been committing securities fraud using information she provided. Vivian opened the envelope, her expression never changing as she reviewed photographs, bank records, and trading statements. After 10 minutes, she set everything aside and steepled her fingers. How long has this been going on? 6 months. They've been meeting at hotels every Tuesday, and Gregory's made over $2 million in illegal trades. I see. Vivian's voice carried the same clinical detachment she probably used when discussing terminal patients. What do you want from me? Gregory controls your family's investment accounts. Freeze them. Cut off his access to capital before the FBI seizes everything. She considered this. And in return? I ensure your name stays out of the federal investigation. Corporate wives aren't responsible for their husbands' crimes, but pharmaceutical executives can't afford securities fraud scandals. Vivian smiled, the first genuine emotion she'd shown. You're more ruthless than I expected. Your husband destroyed my marriage for money. I'm simply returning the courtesy. Done. She pressed her intercom. Patricia, get me Jonathan Meridian at Nexus Solutions and schedule an emergency meeting with our asset management team. I stood to leave. Pleasure doing business with you, Mrs. Blackstone. The pleasure is mutual, Mr. Ravencrest. Gregory always was terrible at risk assessment. Thursday evening, my home office. The house felt different without Isabella. Quieter, cleaner, somehow more honest. I sat in my home office reviewing the final documentation for the federal case when my phone rang. Tom, it's Max. The SEC wants to meet tomorrow morning. They're ready to file formal charges. Both of them? Gregory for securities fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Isabella for conspiracy and insider trading. The FBI's recommending 8 to 12 years for Gregory, 6 to 8 for Isabella. I closed my eyes, feeling something that might have been satisfaction. And the civil suits? Divorce papers are filed. No fault in California, but we're claiming marital waste for the money spent on hotels and gifts. The trade secret lawsuit is separate. $8 million in damages for sharing confidential client information. Any word from Isabella? Her attorney wants to negotiate. She's claiming coercion, saying Gregory pressured her into sharing information. I almost laughed. Isabella, who'd spent her career climbing corporate ladders by any means necessary, was playing the victim card again. Tell her attorney that ship has sailed. She made her choices. Understood. Oh, and Tom? Jonathan Meridian wants to meet with you. Apparently, Nexus is conducting an internal investigation, and they need to understand the scope of Gregory's activities. I made notes in my calendar. Tomorrow would be a busy day. SEC meeting in the morning, Nexus consultation in the afternoon. The corporate warfare was entering its final phase. Friday morning, SEC Regional Office. The Securities and Exchange Commission's San Francisco office hummed with the quiet efficiency of federal law enforcement. Agent Gray and SEC investigator Marcus Scott led me through a conference room filled with financial documents, trading records, and timeline charts that mapped out 6 months of systematic fraud. The evidence is overwhelming, Scott said. Gregory Blackstone made 47 separate trades using material non-public information. Total profits exceed $2.3 million. What about Isabella? Conspiracy charges are solid. She knowingly provided confidential information with awareness that it would be used for securities trading. Agent Gray spread out printed text messages. These conversations show clear intent to facilitate insider trading. I reviewed the messages. Isabella and Gregory discussing my travel schedule, client meetings, and merger timelines. All of it carefully documented, all of it federal crimes. When do you arrest them? Monday morning, Gregory will be taken into custody at his office, Isabella at her sister's house. We'll execute search warrants simultaneously on their homes, offices, and financial accounts. Media coverage? Wall Street Journal gets an exclusive on Tuesday. Business Week follows Wednesday. By Thursday, this will be front-page news across the financial industry. I nodded. Public humiliation was almost as important as legal consequences. In Silicon Valley, reputation was everything. One more thing, Agent Gray said. Your cooperation qualifies you for whistleblower protection under federal securities law. That means career enhancement opportunities, not just legal immunity. Meaning? The SEC is launching a task force on corporate governance and insider trading prevention. We could use someone with your expertise and proven integrity. I smiled for the first time in weeks. While Isabella and Gregory faced federal prison, I'd be advising the government on preventing the exact crimes they committed. I'm interested. Friday afternoon, Nexus Solutions, Executive Conference Room. CEO Jonathan Meridian looked like a man facing a corporate crisis. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie slightly askew, and his eyes carried the hollow look of an executive watching his company's stock price crater. "Tom, thank you for coming." Meridian gestured to a chair across from the conference table where Chief Legal Counsel Sarah Martinez and HR Director Cordelia Knox sat with thick files. "We need to understand the scope of Gregory's activities. He's been systematically trading on inside information my wife provided about my client's activities. 6 months of conspiracy to commit securities fraud." Martinez made notes. "Were there any Nexus-related trades?" "3 that I'm aware of. Gregory used advanced knowledge of your Tech Global merger, the quarterly earnings revisions, and the semiconductor acquisition to generate approximately $400,000 in profits." Meridian's face went gray. "Jesus, the Tech Global merger is our biggest deal this year." "Was your biggest deal. When this becomes public knowledge, Tech Global's board will demand renegotiation or cancellation. They can't afford association with a securities fraud scandal." Knox leaned forward. "What about Isabella's employment status?" "Fire her immediately, for cause: violation of confidentiality agreements, misuse of company resources, conducting an inappropriate relationship with a supervisor." I ticked off the charges on my fingers. Any one of those justifies termination. "And Gregory?" "Also immediate termination. Plus, you'll want to notify your D&O insurance carrier about potential lawsuits. Shareholders are going to demand accountability for Gregory's failure of fiduciary duty." Martinez was writing furiously. "What about the federal investigation?" Monday morning arrests, Wednesday media coverage, Thursday congressional hearing announcement. I leaned back in my chair. "You have about 72 hours to get ahead of this story." Meridian stood and walked to the window overlooking Silicon Valley. "Recommendations?" "Full cooperation with federal investigators, comprehensive ethics overhaul, executive restructuring to remove any appearance of impropriety, and most importantly, sue Gregory for breach of fiduciary duty to recover his illegal profits." Can we survive this? I considered the question. Nexus Solutions was a solid company that had been damaged by executive misconduct, not fundamental business problems. If you handle it correctly, fire the guilty parties, cooperate with investigations, implement stronger controls, and position this as corporate governance success rather than failure. You caught the criminals and turned them over to authorities. Martinez nodded. That's actually not a bad narrative. It's the truth. Gregory and Isabella committed crimes. You discovered them and took appropriate action. The system worked. Meridian turned back to the table. What about you, Tom? Any interest in consulting on our compliance overhaul? I smiled. I'd be honored. Monday morning, FBI field office. Agent Gray's office had been transformed into a command center. Multiple computer screens showed surveillance feeds, trading records, and arrest coordination timelines. At precisely 8 a.m., she gave the signal. All units, execute. I watched through secure video feeds as FBI agents knocked on Gregory's office door at Nexus Solutions. His secretary tried to intercept, but Agent Scott flashed his badge and walked past her into Gregory's corner office. Gregory was on the phone when they entered. He looked up, saw the badges, and his face went completely white. Gregory Blackstone, you're under arrest for securities fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Agent Scott's voice was clear through the audio feed. You have the right to remain silent. The phone fell from Gregory's hand as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Through the glass walls of his office, dozens of Nexus employees watched their VP of operations being led away in federal custody. A second screen showed Isabella's arrest at her sister's house. She was still in her bathrobe when Agent Martinez knocked on the door. Isabella tried to run upstairs, but there was nowhere to go. Isabella Ravencrest, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit securities fraud and insider trading. She collapsed on the staircase, crying hysterically as the handcuffs were applied. Her sister stood in the doorway, holding Isabella's children, trying to shield them from the sight of their mother being arrested. Phase 1 complete, Agent Gray announced. Search warrants are being executed simultaneously on both residences and their offices. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. This morning, my wife of 12 years became a federal criminal, but justice was finally being served. What happens now? Arraignment this afternoon, bail hearing tomorrow, trial preparation over the next 6 months. Agent Gray turned to face me. Your cooperation has been invaluable, Tom. The Bureau doesn't forget that kind of service. I just wanted them held accountable. They will be. Federal conviction rates for securities fraud exceed 90%. Gregory and Isabella are going to prison. Tuesday morning, Wall Street Journal exclusive. The headline appeared online at 6 a.m. Nexus Solutions executives arrested in insider trading conspiracy. By 7 a.m., it was trending on every financial news platform. I read the article over coffee in my kitchen, savoring every perfectly crafted paragraph. 2 executives at Silicon Valley tech company Nexus Solutions were arrested Monday on federal charges of securities fraud and conspiracy, in a case involving millions of dollars in illegal trading profits and corporate espionage. Gregory Blackstone, 45, Vice President of Operations at Nexus Solutions, allegedly used confidential information obtained through an extramarital affair to conduct systematic insider trading over a 6-month period. Isabella Ravencrest, 38, Senior Marketing Director at Nexus Solutions and Blackstone's alleged co-conspirator, provided the confidential information through her husband's investment banking activities. The article continued for 1,200 words, detailing the investigation, the evidence, and the potential penalties. Federal prison sentences of 8 to 12 years. Asset forfeiture of all profits. Permanent bans from the securities industry. My phone started ringing at 7:15. Financial reporters wanting comments, colleagues expressing shock and support, Nexus employees asking if I knew about Isabella's activities. I let them all go to voicemail. Today was about watching the consequences unfold. By 9 a.m., Nexus Solutions stock had dropped 18% on the news. Tech Global announced they were reviewing the merger agreement. 3 institutional investors demanded emergency board meetings. By 11 a.m., both Isabella and Gregory had been fired from Nexus Solutions for cause. Their corporate email accounts were disabled, their building access revoked, their parking spaces reassigned. By 1 p.m., the SEC announced a formal investigation into corporate governance failures at Nexus Solutions. The FBI confirmed they were seeking additional witnesses in the conspiracy. I smiled and opened my laptop. Time to update my LinkedIn profile. Investment banking professional and federal securities law consultant had a nice ring to it. Wednesday afternoon, Federal Courthouse. The bail hearing was a formality. Federal securities fraud defendants with millions in questionable assets don't typically get favorable treatment from magistrate judges. Isabella sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her hands shackled to a chain around her waist. The confident marketing executive was gone, replaced by a frightened woman facing 8 years in federal prison. Her attorney, some overpriced white-collar specialist, argued for house arrest and electronic monitoring. The prosecutor, a sharp federal attorney named Rebecca Sterling, systematically destroyed those arguments. Your Honor, Ms. Ravencrest has shown a pattern of deception spanning 6 months. She systematically betrayed her husband's trust, violated confidentiality agreements, and conspired to defraud securities markets. Electronic monitoring is insufficient for someone who has demonstrated such calculating criminal behavior. The magistrate judge barely deliberated. Bail denied. The defendant represents a flight risk and a danger to the integrity of financial markets. Isabella collapsed in tears as deputies led her back to holding. She'd spend the next 6 months in federal detention, awaiting trial. Gregory's hearing was equally swift. His attorney tried to argue that Gregory was a respected business executive with community ties. The prosecutor presented evidence of $2 million in hidden trading profits and offshore bank accounts. Bail denied. I watched both proceedings from the gallery, taking notes for my SEC consultation work. Federal justice was swift and merciless when it came to securities fraud. Isabella and Gregory had learned that the hard way. Thursday evening, Attorney Cross's office. Max's conference room overlooked the San Francisco Bay, its floor-to-ceiling windows providing a dramatic backdrop for our strategy session. The civil litigation was proceeding simultaneously with the criminal prosecution, and the evidence was overwhelmingly in my favor. The divorce is straightforward, Max said, reviewing financial documents. California's no-fault system means we don't need to prove adultery, but we can recover marital assets Isabella wasted on the affair. How much? Hotel rooms, gifts, travel expenses, approximately $47,000. Plus, we're claiming she violated spousal fiduciary duties by sharing confidential information that damaged your professional reputation. I nodded. What about the trade secret lawsuit? That's separate from the divorce. Isabella violated the Defend Trade Secrets Act by sharing your client's confidential information with Gregory. We're seeking $8 million in damages. Will she have $8 million after asset forfeiture? Max smiled grimly. No. But we'll get a judgment that follows her for the rest of her life. Every dollar she ever earns will be subject to garnishment. And Gregory? We're not suing Gregory directly. His insurance carrier will handle civil claims from Nexus Solutions shareholders. But we are intervening in the federal asset forfeiture to ensure Isabella's portion of their criminal proceeds comes to you as damages. I reviewed the legal strategy. Criminal prosecution would put them both in federal prison. Asset forfeiture would seize their illegal profits. Civil litigation would ensure I recovered damages for their betrayal. It was comprehensive destruction. Timeline? Criminal trial starts in 6 months. Divorce finalized in 9 months. Trade secret lawsuit resolved within a year. Max closed his files. By this time next year, Tom, they'll have lost everything. 6 months later, federal courthouse, criminal trial. The courtroom was packed with reporters, financial industry observers, and curious spectators drawn by the high-profile nature of the case. Isabella and Gregory sat at separate defense tables, their attorneys having negotiated separate representation to avoid conflicts of interest. I took the stand as the government's star witness on day 3 of the trial. Mr. Ravencrest, prosecutor Rebecca Sterling began, please describe your relationship with the defendants. Isabella is my wife of 12 years. Gregory Blackstone was her supervisor at Nexus Solutions. I kept my voice level, professional. They conducted an extramarital affair while conspiring to commit securities fraud using confidential information from my investment banking practice. How did you discover this conspiracy? I found a hotel keycard in Isabella's purse after a company event. Investigation revealed a pattern of hotel meetings coinciding with suspicious stock trades in Gregory's accounts. Sterling walked me through the evidence. Bank records, text messages, trading statements, recorded phone calls. 6 months of systematic securities fraud documented in excruciating detail. Did Isabella ever express remorse for sharing your client's confidential information? No. When confronted, she claimed the information sharing was justified because Gregory was helping her career advancement. The defense attorneys tried to undermine my testimony during cross-examination, suggesting I was motivated by revenge rather than justice. Isabella's lawyer painted her as a victim of Gregory's manipulation and my neglect. Isn't it true, Mr. Ravencrest, that you were rarely home due to business travel? I traveled for work, yes. I didn't travel to commit federal crimes. Gregory's attorney suggested the trading profits were coincidental, not based on inside information. I calmly explained the statistical impossibility of Gregory's trading success without advanced knowledge. The probability of achieving Gregory's returns through legitimate trading is approximately 1 in 14 million. Insurance companies don't pay lottery winners because coincidences happen. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. Isabella received 8 years in federal prison. Gregory received 12 years, with enhanced sentencing for his leadership role in the conspiracy. I watched them both led away in shackles and felt something that might have been closure. Present day. My new office. The SEC consultant office came with a corner view of the financial district and a salary that more than compensated for the divorce settlement. I'd been working with federal investigators for 18 months now, helping develop policies to prevent the exact crimes Isabella and Gregory had committed. My assistant buzzed the intercom. Mr. Ravencrest, you have a call from Phoenix Gray at the FBI. Tom, congratulations on the congressional testimony, Agent Gray said when I picked up. The insider trading prevention bill passed the House yesterday. Good news. Corporate executives need to understand that information theft has consequences. Speaking of consequences, I thought you'd like to know. Gregory Blackstone died in federal prison yesterday. Heart attack. I absorbed the news in silence. Gregory's criminal enterprise had finally killed him, just 4 years into his sentence. Any word on Isabella? Still serving time at Dublin Federal Correctional Institution. 7 more years on her sentence. Agent Gray paused. She's been sending letters to your office. I don't read them. Probably wise. She's still claiming coercion, demanding financial support for your children's education. I almost laughed. Isabella was still trying to profit from her crimes, even from federal prison. Agent Gray, some mistakes cost everything. Others build empires of justice. Well said, Tom. Oh, and congratulations on the engagement. Rebecca Sterling is a remarkable prosecutor. I smiled, looking at the engagement ring sitting on my desk. Rebecca and I had bonded over the federal case, and our wedding next month would be attended by federal judges, SEC commissioners, and the business leaders who'd watched me transform betrayal into justice. Thank you. We're looking forward to a marriage built on honesty and integrity. After hanging up, I opened my desk drawer and removed a small plastic rectangle, the Ritz-Carlton keycard that started everything. Tonight, at the corporate ethics conference where I was keynote speaker, I'd destroy it on stage as a symbol of how criminal behavior ultimately destroys the criminals. My phone rang again. Mr. Ravencrest, your 3 o'clock appointment is here. Jonathan Meridian from Nexus Solutions. Send him in. Meridian entered my office with a warm smile and a thick folder. Nexus Solutions had recovered from the scandal, implementing the compliance systems I'd recommended and achieving record profits under ethical leadership. Tom, the board approved your proposal unanimously. We'd like you to join Nexus as Chief Ethics Officer with a seat on the executive committee. I reviewed the offer package. 7-figure salary, equity participation, and oversight of corporate governance for a Fortune 500 company. It was the kind of position Isabella had always dreamed of achieving. Excellent, I said, signing the documents. When do I start? Monday. And Tom, thank you for everything. What you did, exposing the fraud, cooperating with investigators, helping us rebuild, it saved the company. I stood and shook his hand. Justice has a way of working out, Jonathan. The criminals go to prison, the ethical leaders prosper. That evening, I stood before 200 corporate executives at the Business Ethics Conference, holding the hotel keycard that had revealed my wife's betrayal. This keycard represents the moment when personal betrayal became corporate crime, I told the audience, but it also represents the opportunity for justice, accountability, and ethical leadership. I set the keycard on fire with a ceremonial lighter, watching the plastic melt into nothingness. Some mistakes cost everything. Others build empires of justice. The choice is always ours. The audience erupted in applause. In the back of the room, Rebecca Sterling smiled at me with pride and love. Next to her sat Agent Gray, along with SEC commissioners and federal judges who had helped deliver justice. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number, probably Isabella, still sending desperate communications from federal prison. I deleted it without reading and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, I'd begin my new role as Chief Ethics Officer at Nexus Solutions, overseeing the same company where Isabella and Gregory had committed their crimes. The irony was perfect. I thought about Isabella, spending another 7 years in federal prison, learning that betrayal has consequences. I thought about Gregory, dead from the stress of federal incarceration after losing everything he'd stolen. And I thought about justice, cold, methodical, and absolutely final. Some people choose to commit crimes for money and power. Others choose to expose those crimes and build legitimate empires on the foundation of integrity. I chose justice. And justice chose to reward me with everything Isabella and Gregory had tried to steal. The corporate conspiracy was over. The good guys had won. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Nexus Solutions annual company picnic returned to Napa Valley, but everything was different now. I stood beside the wine station with Rebecca, my wife of 4 years, watching our employees enjoy an afternoon built on ethical business practices and honest relationships. Daddy, can we go on the hayride? My daughter Emma, now 15, had grown into a confident young woman who understood the difference between right and wrong. Of course, sweetheart. I looked around at the families enjoying themselves, all of them built on honesty rather than betrayal. My son Michael, 13, ran up with grass stains on his shirt and a wide smile. "Dad, did you see the stock price today? Nexus hit another all-time high." I ruffled his hair. "That's what happens when companies operate ethically, son. Honesty pays better than crime." Rebecca squeezed my hand. "Any regrets?" I considered the question. Isabella was serving the final years of her federal sentence, working in the prison laundry for 30 cents an hour. Gregory was buried in a pauper's grave, his family having disowned him after his conviction. Their children visited me occasionally, trying to understand how their mother had destroyed our family for stock tips. "None," I said. "Justice was served. Ethics prevailed. Crime didn't pay." The Nexus Solutions stock had grown from $40 per share during the scandal to over $200 today. My equity stake was worth $47 million, built entirely through legitimate business practices and ethical leadership. My consulting practice advised Fortune 500 companies on preventing corporate fraud. My SEC advisory role helped draft federal legislation strengthening insider trading penalties. My marriage to Rebecca was built on honesty, integrity, and mutual respect. Everything Isabella and Gregory had tried to steal through crime, I had achieved through justice. "Mr. Ravencrest?" A young executive approached our table. "I'm Sarah Scott, new Director of Operations. I wanted to thank you for the compliance training program. It's the most comprehensive ethics framework I've ever seen." I smiled. "Corporate crime prevention is important work, Sarah. When executives understand the consequences of fraud, they make better choices." She nodded enthusiastically. The case study of the Blackstone-Ravencrest conspiracy is required reading at Stanford Business School now. 12 years in federal prison sends a clear message about securities fraud. After she left, Rebecca laughed. "You've become a legend in corporate ethics." "Better than being a legend in corporate crime." That evening, back home in our Pacific Heights mansion, purchased entirely with legitimate income from ethical business practices, I sat in my office updating the final report on corporate governance improvements. The Nexus Solutions transformation was complete. Federal agencies used our compliance model as the gold standard for preventing executive misconduct. My phone rang. "Mr. Ravencrest, this is Warden Martinez at Dublin Federal Correctional Institution. I wanted to inform you that Isabella Ravencrest is being released next month after serving 7 years of her sentence." I made notes in my calendar. "Has she made any statements about her intentions?" "She's asked for your contact information multiple times. We've declined to provide it per your instructions." "Good. Please notify local law enforcement if she attempts to contact me or my family." "Understood." For what it's worth, Mr. Ravencrest, she's expressed no remorse for her crimes. She still claims coercion and demands financial support. I almost laughed. 7 years in federal prison hadn't taught Isabella anything about accountability. Warden Martinez, some people learn from their mistakes, others repeat them until they destroy themselves completely. After hanging up, I walked to the safe in my home office and removed a thick file labeled Isabella Ravencrest, Civil Judgments. $8 million in trade secret violations. $2 million in divorce settlements. Millions more in legal fees and restitution. Even if Isabella worked minimum wage jobs for the rest of her life, she'd never pay off the judgments against her. Every dollar she earned would be garnished. Every asset she acquired would be seized. She'd chosen to commit federal crimes for money, and now she'd spend the rest of her life paying for those crimes. I looked out the window at San Francisco Bay, where cargo ships carried legitimate goods through honest commerce. Somewhere across the city, federal prosecutors were building cases against other corporate criminals. At Nexus Solutions, employees were going home to families built on trust rather than betrayal. Justice had prevailed. Ethics had triumphed. Crime had been punished. And I had built an empire on the foundation of integrity. Some mistakes cost everything. Others build everything. Isabella and Gregory had chosen to make the wrong kind of mistakes. I had chosen to build the right kind of empire. The corporate conspiracy was over. Justice was eternal.